Okay, today I'm going to show you how you can take a flex patch and a patcher with a guitar and use a patcher to like make a guitar amp emulator using a couple of convolvers, and there's some other unnecessary stuff that I won't really cover, but just basically how to get better guitar sounding, like more realistic guitar sounding sounds out of a flex library. So this is what I have right here. This is not my vocal, it's from Helv's track Only You. And I use that as a reference for this, so this is what it sounds like.
I just wanna waste my time with somebody who can spit a couple lies when I need that. Talking and you feel so right. I've been thinking about it every single night, but you need that. Why don't you ever look scared, my love? And if you want it, baby, I went back up. I never wanted anything so much. I never wanted anything like.
So let's start with the very basics. Some things that you'll need to know going into this are, these are all chords that I've used Alt S, right? So if you just wrote some chords here, hit Alt S, that'll let you strum them. I would go with a little bit of strum, not too much, not like, you know, unless you're doing a really slow, like ballady song, kind of keep it short, maybe a little bit of tension. And then you might go in here, switch this to none, oops, and just like move a couple of the notes around a little bit. Right, as you can see here, there's some non-uniformity to the chords that I ended up with. The other thing you're going to want to use is Alt R, and you can randomize the levels with that. And then the other thing you're going to want to do is don't have these boring chords that always end the same, right?
I just wanna waste my time with somebody who can spit a couple lies when I need.
And I'll turn the vocal off so it doesn't distract. You're gonna want to add these little like coloring notes almost leading into the end of the chord.
I just wanna waste my time with somebody who can spit a couple lies when I need.
And you might notice that there is like a resolving ticky strum at the end of these. You can get that because the nylon shimmer patch and the nylon light patch, we don't want that delay, but basically the really low notes of that are all those little pickies right there. I went with the nylon shimmer because you can turn the shimmer off and then just add these little like strummed things, and as you can see here, I've done the same. Just some strums that are a little bit randomized with random velocities, and I just repeat those over and over again. Then I also routed those into a separate mixer track where I've just EQ'd them a little bit, right? And send them through some compression. Just to finish this part out so we can kind of move into only talking about post effects from here on out, I've just added some like more complexity to the end of this, so then the last little beneficial thing to using a flex patch versus like a contact library is you can come in here to the gear icon, hit mono, then go into your MIDI channel thing right here, the note colorer, just pick different colors out. And we'll kind of just copy one of these chords so I don't have to write another chord. So if we grab these notes, and I'll edit this part out, but just know you can kind of select the note that you want, hit Alt-C, that'll change the color, or you can click it and use the coloring thing. The only notes that'll bend between each other are notes of the same color. So hopefully you get the idea there. Now let's talk about how I made this patcher here, which really is what I think is the best part of this tutorial. That's this without the patcher. Here's with the patcher and the just finishing compression there. And you've already heard that 1,000 times. So what's important in here, right? We turn off all the audio lines. You can think of this as, these three are pre-effects. These sends are used to allow in the fully wet pre-effects. So I have a couple knobs here. If you're kind of intimidated by patcher, don't be. You can just think of it as this. None of this exists. And you want to start yourself out with two stereo shapers, right? So I'm sending my main audio, turn that off so it doesn't be so confusing. You're going to pull that yellow line from there to there and then there to there, right? That's all that we have connected right here. Then I'm sending it into Fruity Convolvers. So we're going to just send this straight out. What that allows you to do is pick out these little impulse cabinets here right? And then you kind of just set the wetness. That's fully in the left ear though, because I went into my stereo shaper here and just pulled the right channel out. So we just have the left part. Wetness is set here with a tiny bit of delay, and the delay can be useful to get interesting like cabinet type effects where you have one voice that's panned way late, or one voice that starts late like a Haas delay, and one voice that's earlier. So then I have my right channel right here that we will reroute to there. And you see how we get that little like weird swirling? We probably don't want that much delay. So that's basically what you want with that. Now I'm going to route these back to where they're supposed to go, which the rest of this chain is really just to give some weight back to this particular sound. So I'll spend about 2 minutes trying to break down as much of this as I can. But if you want to just get this rack, I'll put it on my Patreon. So we have the first thing here is a Lux verb, where it's using a little bit of the wet scale sidechain threshold thing that's down here. That basically just allows it to have the shortest little decay on a reverb that I have called small spring here. Then I have some brightness and length controls. See, that's a little too underwater, so we might want a nice short length. And the idea with this is to get a kind of clean guitar sound. So then I'm just sending that Lux verb into a fruity send, which is what I have linked my small spring knob to, right? So when I change this knob here, it changes that, which then sends into both my left and right splits for my two convolvers. So we have a little pre-effect that sends into those, and I'm not going to go through the rest of these, but the same idea with the flanger. And then the same concept here with the vintage phaser, which again is sending into those, right? So that's all of our pre-effects there. Now for post effects, the first one is this brightening knob, which just does that, and then it has a frequency bump adjustment, right? If you don't know how to set these up, I have some Patrick tutorials, just look those up. But the shortest explanation of it is you use a Fruity XYZ controller. Input mapping, you don't really have to change. The output mapping, like let's say we want one that as we turn this knob up from 0 to 100, which is the input mapping, the output mapping follows this curve and ends at 50%, right? So for this particular one, I don't know what it's linked to, and I'm not going to check it. All I know is like if I want one that starts in the middle and only goes up, then I'll want to set my output curve. Like let's say we wanted to have a band that starts at this position, just to get some arbitrary. We want it to end here. So that's 77%, and we want it to start here. So 42 to 77. So we're going 44 to 77. 77 for the output. Paste that. Type in 44. Yeah, and then what we would do is go in here and we would, I'll turn my parameters on. I would add an input for my X value and an output for the X output, right? Then I can link that to that particular band that I just set up and link a knob to that, right? So that's, I mean, that's pretty well covered how you do that. I'd say you don't even need to watch the other tutorial now. So I have one that just kind of boosts the highs and cuts some of the lows out, right? And then my next effects in the chain are going to be a compressor that's pretty heavy. Actually, it's not that heavy with the bottom being cut out. That's probably a cleaner sound without the brightness on for this particular one. Then we have another EQ. That's cutting a lot of the lowness out. Like one of the things I've noticed with the flex guitars is they're very low, mid heavy, very fundamental heavy. So I don't want to do that. Well, it's too late. I've already done that. Let's reload my patcher here so I'm not working with something that I don't want to be working with. Yeah, so that's the EQ that I was in. Then I just have two destructors. One of them controls these knobs, which might sound like ass, but if you could put it in context with some other stuff.
Why don't you ever look scared, my love?
And you can send in, you know, like some.
Why don't you ever look scared, my love? And if you want it, baby, I would back up. I never wanted anything so much.
You know, almost like a shitty shoegaze sound. But it's workable. I think that you could use this if you did the right notes and input with it. Then we have a little fuzz.
Why don't you ever look scared?
And again, these all work off of this little patcher right here. So the fuzz turns on and off my bit crushing.
Why don't you ever look scared, my love?
By adjusting the bit crush. The gaze one is just a button that turns this speaker onto all the way and this wave folder like, you know, a third of the way up. Then lastly, I have this destructor that's just like a static effect that's used to kind of take it from this.
Why don't you ever look scared?
Really clean and like acoustic-y sounding or just unprocessed.
Why don't you ever look scared?
So just a little bit of dirt, right? A tiny bit of dirt, a tiny bit of chorus, tiny bit of
Why don't you ever look scared?
this like dusty bit crushing from the Harmer bit crusher.
Why don't you ever?
Then some blood overdrive.
Why don't you ever look scared, my love? And if you want it, baby, I would back up. I never wanted anything so much.
That's probably a little bit too much. Again, I've turned the vocal on, which I regret doing now. All right. Then lastly, and I'm not going to reload it again. We'll just stick with what we got. Lastly, I just have a width knob. Now, why do I add a width knob? Because a lot of these, well, now I need the vocal actually, come to mention it.
Why don't you ever look scared?
Listen to how much clearer, even when, like, if you use a width effect like a flanger, or like this is a wide guitar sound.
Why don't you ever look scared, my love?
So hear how much better the vocal is going to sound with it if you give it the space.
Why don't you ever look scared?
And you can still have a flanger or this little reverb or some phasing.
Why don't you ever look scared, my love? And if you want it, baby, I would back up. I never wanted.
Which is going to give it like that creamy, wavy sound without the width that you get from using those effects.
Why don't you ever look scared?
So with that, I'm going to go ahead and end this one, y'all. Thank you for watching. If you want to support this channel, you can go to Patreon, where I will put this patcher and there's samples every month, or you can go buy the sample pack I just put out, Glitchy Bullshit Super Duper. Big pack, lots of good sounds. Hit me up for lessons on Instagram. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.